Welcome to Virtual Hacker Summer Camp 2020. I am your host, Matt Alderman. We are live streaming and recording. And for this first interview, first one of the day, we're going to welcome Roy Cohen. He is the co-founder and VP of Sales at a company called Vicarious. Roy, welcome.
Thanks, Matt. Hi, great to be here.
So you have an interesting background, Roy, which I thought was interesting to start with. You're a former pen tester, but you're also VP of Sales. How does that transition happen?
Actually, it's exciting. Imagine the excitement when you're engaging with the customer and suddenly you can get all technical and explain stuff. So that's totally a great capability to have.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I still spend days on the sales side from the engineering side and spend a lot of time working with customers over the years. And I think having that skill set, that technical skill set to really help walk customers through what you're doing is important. And I think what we want to really focus on here is some of those lessons learned from your pen testing days leading up to the creation of Vicarious. And you have this interesting story about some of the politics kind of associated with a pen test and the pen testing results. Kind of explain that story for us.
Yeah, sure. So first, I would like to share, obviously, back in the days when I was doing a pen test, I kind of remember this specific incident. And of course, I got many stories to share, but I will share my personal one. So one of my first pen tests which I've done was at this hospital. So the project was compounded of 2 days of on-site analysis, and the remaining was kind of used to do the reports. So on the first day, I actually got to the client. I physically sat on the ER room, with a hoodie and all stuff. I was kind of living the moment. So I took my laptop, connected with an RJ45 to the wall, and like an ordinary black box pen test, I was doing this network scan. I guess you're quite familiar with the steps, Matt. So the process was doing some scanning. I got some initial insights. I was able to identify some key components over the network. I think one of the crown jewels I was able to identify was a vulnerable Windows Server 2000, which after doing some exploitation attempts, I was able to actually get a hold of a hashed memory, a hash password in memory. And afterwards, it's a short process of some brute force in order to reverse it and to get the actual credentials, which appear to be a domain admin. So this was kind of the crown jewel of the pen test, and that was achieved on the first day. So the second day was kind of, I was trying to try my luck and find some stuff. And I actually found this telephony device. I noticed they had an IP-based phone. And I was going through Kali Linux. I found some utility which allows you to exploit it in some way. Basically, you provide it with an IP, a port, and a parameter, which initiates the exploitation. And I try to experiment with that. So at the beginning, I sent this parameter, 1, which resulted nothing. I sent 5, I sent 10, nothing happened. Then I got mad. I typed 10,000. And all of a sudden, you can imagine all of the phones in the floor, they all rang, at least for a few seconds. So it was effectively a denial of service for the entire hospital.
Yeah, that gets a little crazy there because, you're trying to get in, how you had to get in is you actually kind of DDoS the entire hospital. So at least they had flags and alerts going off to warn them that something was going on, which is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously I had the domain admin, to show in the report, and a couple of thousand of vulnerability findings I had. But this telephony thing was also something I thought was quite crucial to add to the report, because eventually, domain admin, obviously something that you should be proud of, but that thing could basically take a hospital to its knees. Mm-hmm. So just before I'm sending over the report, I met the customer. I had a conversation with him. Which he told me it was the IT manager. So there was the IT manager and the security officer. So the IT manager kind of told me, look, Roy, first of all, there's no way you're gonna put in the report all of the vulnerabilities you found. There's nothing I can do with a couple of thousand of vulnerabilities. You need to pick 5. Okay, so I kind of try to negotiate and discuss, and also try to explain, but he wouldn't accept. He said you need to pick and choose 5 of the most critical threats. And also, surprisingly, he told me the telephony finding that you had, it will not get into the report. And I was asking why. I think it's kind of crucial. I think it's quite important. It was unauthenticated vulnerability, which allowed me to basically conduct this denial of service. And he said, A, it's not a production machine, which was quite surprising because the phones actually rang. And B, it's going to get replaced. So I gave a call to my team leader. He said, look, Ray, this is the customer. You should accept his notions on it and remove it from the report. In any case, they're going to take this device off. So there's nothing to concern here. But I guess you see where it goes. It's kind of not to be surprised. I came back 6 months later to do another analysis, which this is where I found the same system was there, was still vulnerable. And, it's unfortunate because they did nothing to resolve that.
Yeah, and I think one of the big challenges with penetration testing results, right? And we talk about different kind of levels of penetration testing. There's the scanning part, right? Maybe some people would call a vulnerability scan a pen test, right? It's a different level of maturity.
Yeah.
But then when you get in and you actually, pwn a box, or you get root and you get the credentials like you did in this particular case, how do you then prioritize what's in the report, right? I think this is a big challenge in general. And we've seen this in the vulnerability management space for a while anyways, is that when you do a scan, you produce literally thousands of results. How do you really determine what is truly a high risk and what's not? And you have to understand context a little bit. In this particular case, what he was telling you was, yeah, it's not a production system, or it's getting replaced. Maybe it's not as high a risk because he thought that context was correct, but when you went back 6 months later. So this has been this ongoing challenge, I think, with vulnerability scanning and penetration testing for a while. So, I think that's kind of the precursor to Vicarious as a company, right? I mean, one of the things you guys are trying to do is help prioritize these different vulnerabilities to understand what really is risky or not. Is that where this evolution came from, is through this pen testing experience?
Precisely spot on. Imagine, again, getting back to the story, imagine me as an external consultant. There is no way I'm able to get the context to prioritize effectively and to deliver, the key threats to the customer, given the fact there is also a limited span for the pen test. I need to try to gather as much information to get some results to generate a report, all in a span of a week, approximately. So you're totally correct. And I think this is what we try to achieve here at Vicarious. We are trying to take battle-proven risk models and based upon that to prioritize the most critical threats for the client. And not only ones which rely on external feeds, we're trying to collect internal key risk indicators. We represent that in a form of hashtags. We call it exploitation tags. And this is which allows us to pinpoint the most critical threats and the most critical vulnerabilities in real time. Sometimes customers are amazed. They're going to tell us, no, there's no way this vulnerable process is running with high privileges. There is no way I have open ports. We have all of these being evaluated as, being done continuously. And I think this is one of the key value proposition that we can give for our clients.
Yeah, and I think we've seen the market evolve over the past number of years. I mean, I've worked at Qualys, I've worked at Tenable. One of the big challenges was you saw this new kind of market emerging, originally called threat and vulnerability management. I think they now call it risk-based vulnerability management.
Yeah.
But if you think about the contextual components of it, the scanners typically didn't have some of that context, so they didn't have some of those elements to prioritize. And most of the platforms have started to add them in now, right? Which I think is interesting. But you also had a whole market, an adjacency market emerge that was also doing this and aggregating results across multiple scanners, allowing you to add things like business criticality and other things. What I think is interesting with what Vicarious does is automating some of those variables that are typically static in some of the other solutions. Because how often are you going to go out and update business criticality on an asset, for example. In your example, we had a telephone system that was supposed to maybe not be in production. Well, that has a different risk level if it's in production, or if it's being retired, but then it doesn't get retired, then that risk level has to be re-added. And keeping up with those dynamics are tough. And I think you guys have done some interesting things to try to solve that dynamic nature of the asset to help with risk prioritization, right?
Yeah, precisely that. When we are evaluating an environment, we try to first to understand where we are positioned. And we try to do it automatically, of course, without the assistance of the client. To try to understand what is a production machine and which is not a production, UAT, for example. We try to understand what vulnerabilities you have and how the behavioral of the application and of the machine may either add or reduce the risk of the given application. And I think the magic sits where when we combine the context, we combine the behavioral, which is quite unique again, and external feeds all together. This is what helps us to achieve, time after time, clear-cut results. I guess, Matt, that every vulnerability is eventually the score is compound of a vector with the parameters, right? Whether it's you can do it over the network or on adjacent, you need high privileges, you have all of these parameters. And one of our key differences is that we actually check this parameter, this vector on production, on the actual machines. We want to check if these vulnerabilities can be actually exploited under your usage, under your environment properties.
Right, but you're doing it at the time you're doing the scan and the test, not relying on hypotheticals per se, right? It's actually live. And I think that's what's really interesting with some of the things you guys are doing at Vicarious.
Yeah. Eventually, the goal here is quite simple. We try to reduce the risk while helping customers to do it in an efficient manner. So aside of our prioritization, we can actually, again, it's all being done continuously and in real time. We try to analyze all of the vulnerabilities on a continuous manner. Whenever a new vulnerability emerges, there's also being popped and represented in the system. We also try to actively predict which of the application will be hacked in the future. We'll find vulnerabilities there. Then we prioritize based on these key risk indicators we just mentioned. And we help the customer also to take an action to either patch directly from the system, or we have our own technology, which is called patchless. So this is our vision to end-to-end vulnerability management.
Yeah, I like the story. I know you're offering a free trial. If anybody wants to try the product, they can sign up for a free 30-day trial by visiting securityweekly.com/vicarious. Roy, thank you so much for starting us off on this first interview today.
Thanks, Matt. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
And thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. We'll see you soon with our next interview.